surnuméraire et la partie patronale. Eux, ce qu'ils veulent faire, c'est ajouter du temps, c'est la pousser plus loin encore. Okay? Nous, ce qu'on veut faire, c'est au contraire la maintenir à 3 ans sûr que si la personne change de projet pendant qu'elle est en état de précarité, on continue de compter. Ce qui se passe en ce moment, c'est qu'un employeur, je sais que ça, il y a quelques années à Pointe-de-l'Île, c'était quelque chose de bien populaire. Le patron arrivait à une rencontre.
Is that Mickey Alon? Mickey Alon's the meeting.
That's Mr. Chaim Alon for you, sir.
All right. Dr. Alon.
It looks like you have a big library there. Is that just bullshit or what?
That's called a nice virtual background. It's one of the nicest ones I have.
Okay, you don't have an ocean view or something, or?
I have all kinds of things, but I'm going to keep it simple for tonight.
All right. How you doing, Mike?
I'm doing better. I think by next weekend I should be out and about, hopefully. Although I'm getting a headache from Hydro tonight. I already had the meeting at 7 o'clock. So.
Oh, really?
I think it's not, Hydro meetings are not good for COVID.
Really? So what? So the meeting just with you today?
No, the meeting is the first focus group that is still going on. It was supposed to be an hour, but I'll explain to everybody. It was not a very impressive meeting.
So basically, the meeting the focus meeting now is with who?
Well, it's there's about 5 or 6 focus groups that are set up. Some people are some people. The first one, Mark Sidloy, was on with me, but I'll explain it. I'll explain it when everyone's here.
Okay.
Hey, Mike.
Hey, Ayel, how are you doing?
Hi, Mike. Mike Cohn, how you doing, Mike?
There is the veteran, Lou Lewis, and his bride, Beatrice, or is she his daughter?
Mike, can I ask you something? Mike, those focus groups, do we have representation besides yourself tonight on those groups?
It depends. I mean, there was a phone number for people to call. Everyone was given a chance to be part of the focus groups, but I'll explain that to you all in a moment.
Okay.
But as I said, I was highly unimpressed with the meeting just now, and it's not even the fault of the people doing the meeting. It's Hydro's, putting the cart before the horse. But
Okay.
let's wait for everyone to be on so I don't repeat.
Good to see you in good shape, Mike. And Cheryl.
Yeah, I'm coming along. Thanks. Coming on for 3 weeks.
He can't see you, can he?
No.
Let's see what Ruth looks like, my fellow COVID resident.
Hey, he cleaned up his library.
Yeah, he has a backdrop.
I'm gonna wait a few more minutes, and then I'll invite people to come in as they do. We got Dana's coming back on. Dana's very busy tonight. Dana was just at our meeting, so she'll be able to back me up on how impressive it was. Hey, Dana, weren't they full of information? It's a good thing Charles Guérin was not in that first meeting. That's all I could say.
Pretty boring?
No, it's not boring. It's called not knowing how to answer questions.
Mhm.
I'll explain it shortly.
Yeah. Well, they usually seem to want to convince us of their point of view as their main goal. Not very good at listening.
As I explained, it says one hand is not talking to the other with Hydro at all, and it's hard to believe, for a $500 million project, that they could have that kind of game plan.
Mm.
So I'm going to give it 2 more minutes and then I'll start. Charles, I'm going to begin. I'm going to give kind of an overview, and then I'm going to turn it to you to give your thoughts since you're on the committee, give your opinions, and then we'll open it up to questions. We'll ask people to use the chat on the side. If you have a question, not yet, but once Charles and I have spoken, you can ask your questions, and then we'll answer them to the best of our ability. I think we'll start. I think we'll start now. And
Could everybody just put on their mute, please?
yes, please. Yes. So yes. So in case anyone is wondering about people asking me how I am, I got COVID 3 weeks ago. There are some others in the Meadows have had it. I am doing well now, thank goodness. First week and a half was pretty miserable. And I don't know if any other COVID people on the call want to share their stories, but they do look very good. They cleaned up nicely, and thank goodness we live in the era of the internet, and I was able to work from home and handle issues like Hydro-Québec. So I'm going to begin. What I wanted to talk to you about, first of all, was that the focus groups that are taking place, the first one tonight by Hydro, it's brought a lot of confusion. And the one tonight that we had, I can tell you that everybody on it, Dana as an example, she can certainly give her opinion. It's putting the cart before the horse. There's two parts to this project. It's the project that we all are concerned about that is going to take place between 2023 and 2026 and perhaps beyond, where they're going to build giant towers in our backyards and a substation not far away. There's valid reasons for them doing it. They're doing it from LaSalle all the way to Saint-Laurent, so on and so forth. There is a committee that was formed. Yet the committee was launched last January. Charles Guérin is on the committee. I asked him to sit on for Merrimac since he's very knowledgeable about these issues. And but it's a poorly constructed committee overall. We met in January. We met in February. We were supposed to meet in March. The pandemic happened. They didn't reconvene until October. So while this committee has not completed its deliberations in terms of getting feedback on the lines and where they should be and so on and so forth, they go ahead and plan these focus groups to get everyone's opinion on what type of gardening would they like to see in the back, what type of bike path would they like, what do you do in the backyard? And when tonight the Hydro people made their presentation, and maybe they'll be better in the other focus groups, and Dana, you can nod your head if you agree, they were reading from a script and they didn't know anything about the project and they couldn't answer any questions. I asked them the most important question. I said, you're talking here about all the beautification you're going to do on the Meadows land near towers. Okay, but when is that going to happen? Because the construction is going to be between 2023 and 2026, and it could end up being 2023 and 2030. When are you going to do this beautification? You clearly can't do it while they're doing all this construction. And they did not have an answer. No one could answer the question. They've been planning these focus groups for months and they were completely ill-prepared, and it's not their fault. Hydro puts the cart before the horse. They do not consult with the community at large on the project we're all concerned about, yet they're busy asking us what type of grass would we like and what type of activities do you do and what do you kids do there? Do you walk around there? Dana, maybe you want to just say if you agree with my assessment of the meeting.
Yeah, it seemed pointless. And this is the meeting that seems more important at this point.
Yes, and Charles in your comments is right. The one thing we did do is everybody expressed concern about the towers. People did express their wish that it would be underground and not overhead. So I would recommend that nonetheless, when the meetings take place, the focus groups, they'll get the message. They'll hear from everybody, and everyone should make it very clear in the other focus groups that we appreciate this group. They're a separate group. They're not even Hydro people, most of them. You appreciate the fact that they're coming to us, but Hydro had this in the wrong way. And the fact is that, yes, because of the pandemic, we had to delay the committee. The committee has to meet another 2 times. So they're claiming, these people are claiming that in March, there'll be a full disclosure of the project. So I just wanted to give a little bit of an overview of the project. I'm going to post a blog on it later tonight, and then I'll let Charles speak, and then we'll answer questions. So as you know from the letter you got, work's going to occur between 2023 and 2026, and it could be longer. I mean, I've spoken to some people in the last few days, and it could be longer. It could go longer than that. we still don't have proper information on that project. The converting of the substations is going to take place. That the Hampstead Substation is behind the Mount Sinai Hospital. It doesn't really impact us, but you know, when we had that giant power failure a few months ago, it's that shut down half of practically the entire West End. So both Hydro and Côte Saint-Luc have done a study related to the level of the electromagnetic fields, what they would be. What that is a combination of invisible electric and magnetic fields of force. These occur naturally and due to human activities. So Hydro showed that the EMFs will be within the norm. That's what and we did do our own investigation, and we're doing more. And at the present time, our investigation confirmed that is the case, that it's within the norms. I spoke yesterday to Councillor Erdely, who's co-chairing the committee with Councillor Torjman, and they both said that on the positive side, Charles can give his opinion on this afterwards with his engineering background, when you increase the voltage, you decrease the current. So that means that the EMFs, it could actually be safer. Now, these towers are going to be huge and tall. They're going to be very, very tall, probably 2 or 3 times the size of the towers we have right now. So there's valid reason for the work being done. You know, it's been about 60 years. The equipment is out of date. Again, it's taking place from LaSalle all the way to Saint-Laurent. It's not like we can turn around and say, oh, we don't want this, just forget it. So the working committee, as I said, has been in place, and it really needs to end so that we can have meetings like this for the community at large. So it's hope that we can move on with that soon. Again, I already talked, I had some notes here about the focus groups. I'll be very interested to hear from people around this table who participate in the others. But frankly, as Dana echoed my sentiments, really poorly prepared. Luckily I was on the first call, so I was able to answer a lot of questions. And they're asking us what we think about the project. And I said to them, nobody knows about the project. I said, only this small committee, which was terribly assembled and is not representative of the community at all, and has 2 people on the committee from Hampstead who are representing their mother, concerned about the substation, and not really discussing anything else. So that to me was concerning, and so it's really not very useful. The right of way, you're going to hear that term a lot. It's basically a legal agreement that allows Hydro to access to the property directly beneath and to either side of electric power lines. So the right of way is our big towers that are, you know, near the train tracks. Another big issue, and I know Charles has his opinion on this, is underground versus overhead. And yes, we would prefer this all to be done underground, but Hydro's position always is, whenever it's impossible to put an overhead line because of insufficient space, they will do it underground. That means like downtown, for instance. The cost for the overhead lines give you a service life of 85 years. None of us will be around for that when it's done, and that's $150 million. To do underground, it would last for 40 years, and the cost would be $440 million. Please understand that it's Hydro paying for this, not Côte Saint-Luc. We can protest, we will continue to push for underground wires, but this is not going to be a community wide protest, because it only impacts certain condos and certain streets. So yeah, certainly we can all band together and push for it, but ultimately at the end, it's going to be Hydro's decision, and we'll have to see what happens. So, the towers, as I said, that's going to be a big job. Now, the main thing I need to share with you, and I'm going to pass it on to Charles, is that we still don't know a lot. We still don't have a lot of information. We're still asking a lot of questions to Hydro. And really, Charles, you could nod your head if you agree with me. With all due respect to those two sisters representing their mother, they have hogged the line in the meetings we've had. They've dominated the discussion about the substation not being near their mother's house. And it's really, I've spoken out against it. I don't feel we should have 2 people from Hampstead in the committee and dominating the discussions. So therefore, a lot of the questions that we've asked, Charles and I have asked, and others, have still not been answered. So there's supposed to be 2 more meetings in February, and we'll see what happens. So I'm going to let Charles give his comments as a member of the committee, and then we'll open it up for questions. Charles?
Sure, can you hear me clearly?
Yeah.
Okay, good. Well, just to give you a little background in this, what they're trying to do here is they know that the electricity requirements in Montreal are going to go up quite a bit. Everybody is starting to get electric cars. There's data centers, across the island. There's a lot of different places where they know that they're going to need more electricity over the next 10 years, 20 years, 30 years, 40 years. Now, the thing about how they want to do this is they want to basically follow the way that they've been doing it for quite a while, which is our towers run, I think it's 110 kilovolts right now, and they're pretty high. They're about 100 feet, about 100 feet, 150 feet high, 125 feet high. They're going to replace those with towers that are twice as high. Now, if you can imagine how high that is, that's about a 200 foot tower. If you go out to West Island, you can see those towers because West Island, basically, I don't know how, depending on how you look at it, they lost their bid. The populace really didn't want those towers, but they decided to. I think I heard that they paid the city a little bit of money, and then they got people to agree to put in a park along the way where you could go jogging and things like that. So the project is really cross island. I mean, we're talking about from one end of the island north all the way to south across the island, replacing the entire grid. And so it's an enormous project. Now, they've done similar projects in different places. For example, interestingly enough, they have a project to deliver power to New York, 500 kilometers of wire. And they plan to do that underground because New York doesn't like to have ugly towers cutting through their mountains. Same thing for Vermont. Vermont didn't want that. I don't think the project was approved by Vermont yet, but they didn't want those towers with servitudes the size of our servitudes slicing through the mountains in Vermont. So because they're ugly, because they are environmentally, they're environmentally a real pain, especially if you're going through the country. If you're going through the city where we already have a servitude, they're just ugly. They're really, really tall. And when you walk outside your house, you're gonna, if you see the wires above you now just imagine the wires twice as tall above your head, and that's what they're looking at. Now, when we talked to them about this, there were a couple of initial concerns, and the initial concerns were EMF. Now, the person that he's mentioning who had the sisters in Hampstead happens to be an interesting lady. She happens to live right next to the substation, and she claims that the EMF in her house is pretty high. And whenever she's measured in her backyard, the EMF, she did not consider it within safety levels. I've gone and measured EMF myself, and our levels are pretty good. And judging by what they say, probably with the towers for our lifetime, the EMF levels where we are probably won't be too bad. I have noticed that as I go towards the substation, that the EMF levels do get higher around Sinai there, and they go a bit higher, but still well within safety limits. So EMF is one of the things that people are concerned about. Now, they come back with EMF. They've got 1,000 arguments as to why EMF is safe for you. It's not they figure they've completely licked the problem with the EMF. And they have a lot of technical reasons why. The wires that they're putting in have a different polarity to the way the wires are typically sent, and apparently that will cut down on the EMF. They also say that the current goes down when the voltage goes up. Now, that's true, but only if you have the same load that you have now. And the whole purpose of the system is to double the load. So because they want to have a system 10 years from now or 20 years from now that is, you know, pumping electricity to all the electric cars that people might have. So whatever they say about EMF now, they're not giving us the right data. And we pointed that out to them, and they haven't come back to us with any you know, idea about that. I personally am not particularly concerned about EMF because I've worked with electronics, and the amount of EMF that you have from in your house from your cell phone up to your ear like this is a little bit higher than, or considerably higher than you would get just walking outside your house underneath these wires. So EMF, I don't consider the biggest problem. The ugliness of putting up these towers is one of the things. They also there are a lot of different ways towers can fall. Towers can fall in ice storms. Maybe these towers are better at surviving ice storms than others. Well, I'll give you, I'll send on the chat, I'll give you a link to why high voltage lines are not that great. And you can have a look at that. And it is just makes the case for burying the wires. Now, interestingly, Hydro has the best technology in the world for burying wires. They're actually rather unique in being able to bury super high voltage wires. Recently, they had a problem of how to get the high voltage across Highway 40 for a company called Hyperion, which has a big data center. And so they're using their underground cables to get the high voltage out there, and they're also selling them electricity at half price. So they gave them a free cable and electricity at half price, which is awfully nice of them. When we've asked them, well, what if you put the electricity underground for Côte Saint-Luc? We're only 1.7 kilometers of cable. It's not a major amount of cable. They say, well, first of all, it'll only last 40 years. That they don't know. That's a guess because they've never had the cable for 40 years. But they think maybe 40 years. They think the other ones maybe 80 years. Again, they have they haven't had the transmission wires for 80 years. So they don't know about that, but they present it as if it's fact, you know. With the, what was I going to say about the underground? I'll come back to it. We had suggested that they consider, if they're going to do high voltage transmission lines, put it over on CPRL's land. That way the lines would go around Bialik. They wouldn't go to right next to Bialik. They go off in the CPRL yards, where they do have lines out there because they're sending lines out to Saint-Laurent out there. Then they could conceivably keep lines running through CP's land, but they'd have to make an agreement with CP to do that. And they say that they're in discussion, but they can't discuss it. So that doesn't tell us anything. It just tells us that they really, really want to do something with wires following the same route that they're following right now. So the bad news is these towers. Probably the good news is that the substation will probably be nicer than it is now. They're going to get rid of most of the transformers that they have and cut that down about 60% in size, and then they're going to cover it with a building. So you won't see the substation. So instead of having the ugly transformers on the other side of town, you'll have a nice, pretty substation. So anyway, so that's kind of where they are. You know, I have my feelings about why, if they're going to do it around here, would it be nice if it was underground wires? In the city of was the name of the city? Limoilou. People protested two things. They wanted underground wires, but they didn't want underground wires too close to their house. they felt that Hydro was doing a similar plan to what they're doing here. And they felt that first it was going to devalue their property by having high voltage wires right near their house. I mean, super high, 300,000 volts. And they protested. And interestingly, when they took it to court, they went on the EMF idea, and they said that we don't know if these things cause cancer or not. And the judge said to err on the side of caution is part of the providence of Hydro-Quebec. They should not build something if there's any possibility that it could cause something, even if you don't have the scientific data present. The fact that it could, and there is some studies, especially in Europe, that would give some indication that there is possible cancer issues. Therefore, they did not permit them to put in the high wires or underground wires very, very close, within 15 meters of property. And they ended up building underground stations, and they removed 200 towers. 200 towers were removed to do the underground thing. Oh, I remember what I wanted to say about the underground thing. Quebec, Hydro-Quebec has an interesting way of telling us what the price is. At our first meeting, they said, if you build it underground, it will cost 4 times as much. Then I found out that West Island, they told them 10 times as much. So it was 10 times as much to build it in West Island. It was 4 times as much to build it in Côte Saint-Luc. And then when they offered it to the state of New York, they had, I think it was $4 million per kilometer. And so the price varies as to what they want to tell you, as far as I can see, and what they want to negotiate. They're also very kind to you if you're a data center. If you're a data center, you get the electricity at half the price, and they'll run any kind of wire you need to get the electricity out to you. If you're a resident, you've got to fight this kind of stuff. And anyway, that's what we've been putting up with. We don't get very good data from them. You know, they give us all their engineering data and then all their logic as to why they think what they're doing is right. But when you actually question it, they don't come back to you with good answers. So it's particularly frustrating. So anyway, that's all I have to say at the moment. If anybody has any questions, maybe.
Well, I would just say it was the same when they were discussing the servitudes with us before.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yes, and
I
just
joined
put the,
it late
if
because-
you have a question, just put your name in the chat.
Oh, yeah.
Just so you understand, everyone understands that this is not the project that we kind of rejected because of the servitudes a couple of years ago. That
No.
project's coming too. They're so overwhelmed with this right now. They're gonna put this thing to bed. Originally, they were going to put it to bed by January 1st. Probably they're going to put this to bed by June completely. It's going to be ready to go and plan of action. And then they're going to come back to us and talk to us about redoing the wires on our property, which of course are aging and putting us in a position. But we're not there yet. It's going to be a lot of hydro drama at the Meadows in the next couple of years.
Yeah, and interestingly, there's one guy who happens to be the PR guy for both of the projects. And the funny thing is that the two projects don't know about each other. So the guys building the wires don't know that the guys who are doing the other stuff, well, the guys who are building the wires are related to the team that tore down all our trees and completely removed our sound barriers and, and everything there. And
can I address the health hazards from the high wires? You talked about the case in Europe, Charles.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I'm not really up to date on electromagnetic fields and their health hazards, but it was inconclusive decades ago. It probably is today as well. But we have a vulnerable population right adjacent at the Bialik High School and elementary school, and they have to be protected. If there's we can show that it's either cancer forming or that case in Europe That's a great leverage point that you have the school there, and that could perhaps reduce the threat of them putting in high towers here. As well, then you have to consider too the boring of underground cables or wires. Will that, to what extent will be disruptive at that phase compared to putting up the towers? So how is that going to be mitigated as well? But overall, as a health hazard, as aesthetics, I believe the majority of us would not prefer to have the high tension towers.
Yeah. Well, the thing about the high tension towers, if you want to do it, just don't put it through a residential area. You know.
Right, particularly
put it on the CPRL. You know, if they wanted to, they could have just moved the thing, you know, out to the CPRL on the Bialik side, and then they could have routed around on the rail land going all the way out to the substation. And we even, I think Dita even showed them a way that they could put the substation.
Yes, we Charles, we have done that. And by the way, we've been very steadfast in that. But in the end, when this is all over, you know, like Charles said at the beginning, what Hydro's doing is they're very good at PR, and they're committees so they can say we consulted with the community. They're having the second committee to talk about vegetation, and it's going to be there in 10 years. They're very good at putting on a PR show and saying, look, we consulted. They're not consulting. This committee is not representative of the community. That committee should have been shut down and moved along at a quicker pace. I understand with the pandemic. So it's going to be hopefully 2 more meetings in February. And then in March, not only us, but I have people on Marc Chagall who are going to be impacted by this. And they're asking questions. And there's people living at the Villa Merrimac who questions, and some people living in the last building on Rembrandt. So there's a lot of people that have questions, and Hydro is not giving the answers. So we hope that the only reason the meeting is taking place right now is because we started this focus group, and you're going to see anyone who's on the focus group, you're going to see they're going to read a speech about the project. The woman's just reading from, and then when you ask her a question, she has no clue about anything to do with the project. And I don't fault her. I fault Hydro for putting them in a position like that. So sorry, I know that there's some questions. Stephen Spodek had a question.
I'm going, just one second. Hi, Mike, can you hear me?
You're a little choppy, but go ahead.
Let's make it a bit louder. So I have a couple of, first of all, Mike, it's good to see you. A number of us had COVID, as we all know. So
I think I touched the same doorknob as you, Stephen. So
right. So a couple of questions. You referred earlier to the focus group. So I guess it's clearly an outside company that's hired to hold these focus groups. Is there any merit for those of us who are going to attend the other focus groups to have a series of questions to continuously ask them? Do you have something you can send us in advance? Because to listen to the same sort of merry-go-round about gardening and bike paths and jogging is a waste of time.
I think, Stephen, I think the message that we did tonight is they're already, those people, there's from a private firm and there's one person from Hydro. I think that every single person has got to explain they're not happy with this project. They're not happy they weren't consulted on this project. You're not happy that they're busy meeting with us about how to make bike paths and trees and picnic tables when they haven't even explained properly the program. I think you need to express your disenchantment. And at one point, and Dana, I found it amusing, Mark, I found it amusing. They asked us at the end, well, would you be happier with the towers or without? And like we answered, like, what kind of question is that? Of course, we'd be happier without. And
the question, Mike, the question should be asked a bit differently. You like it with Vaseline or without?
Yeah, well, but the way they ask their questions tonight, honestly, it sounds like they're just collecting information that they'll go into a report that's going to get shelved and no one's going to read it.
So, Mike, I wanted to ask something else. Charles, first of all, thank you for the work you're doing. I've never had a chance to speak with you, although I know you're a neighbor. You mentioned the project in Limoilou, which is a suburb of Quebec City. has anybody ever spoken to the town council there or discussed
Yeah,
with
well,
people?
funny enough, I keep forgetting the lady's name. She has an Italian name, the one lives near the substation.
No, but Charles, you mean, you keep saying lives near here. You mean the daughters who live in Hampstead?
Well, there's the daughters live in Hampstead, but the lady who lives in Côte Saint-Luc, she's got an Italian name. I forget her name.
No. I'm not talking
Guerriero.
about the ladies.
Oh,
You
yeah.
referred to a community near Quebec City.
Yeah, the reason I mention is I don't know. Nobody seemed to have noticed, but she's an investigative journalist also for the Fifth Estate. So she
What's
has.
the name?
I don't remember her name. It's Gia something or other.
Guerriero.
Guerriero, there you go. But she lives right next to the substation, so she was quite adamant about. She's researched.
Does she live next to her parents, Charles? Charles, does she live next to her parents?
Because I don't know the whole story. All I know is that I've seen that she has access to kind of infinite information from, I guess, from CBC and other data sources where she gets it.
Yeah, the reality is,
she's the one who contacted. She actually drove out to Quebec to go see it.
yeah, but those two people, again, I'm not, they're doing what they feel is right, but the reality is they don't care about the towers. They don't care about the voltage. They only care about the substation. And I don't look if we were going to invite the children of everyone living in Merrimac to join the committee, it would be out of control. So I just have a problem with them kind of hogging the meeting, if you will. Charles, did you have anything more to answer that question, or can we move to the next?
No, it's just that if you want somebody who has gone to Lemieux there and seen it and talked to people, she has. And I could put anybody in contact.
Could we
with
do?
her.
So I'd be happy to contact her.
Sure.
Okay, well, Charles, contact her individually and then see if she's comfortable with it.
I will.
Melissa Margulies, go ahead.
Records.
Melissa, go ahead. Can't hear you, Melissa.
Sorry, can you hear me now?
Yes, go ahead.
Okay. In Dollard, they also had a similar fight. And Lynette Guilbeault, who works at McGill University, I think Stephen knows her, was very, very involved also in trying to get their substation, like their towers done underground. And I think we can consult with them on how they lobbied Hydro, what they did, what worked, what didn't work. I think, unfortunately, ultimately, in the end, Hydro said they weren't doing it underground, but maybe there are some lessons that we can learn from them in that committee and find out what they did. And maybe we can sort of either piggyback off that or have some other points of reference in terms of dealing with Hydro, because they did it. It was about, I think, 2 or 3 years ago.
We can certainly do that. Keep in mind that, we do need to stir this up. This has not been in the media. This has been all done behind closed doors. I've asked the city to have public meetings, even when this committee was going on. Charles is my witness. I've asked the council. It's fallen on deaf ears. But the reality is that it impacts not enough people, I think, to make a point. With Dollard, it's in a huge area, their towers in that area, and it affected a lot of people. And even with that voice, they didn't do it. But nonetheless, good point. Marla
We'll put you
Pinsler.
in touch with her.
Okay, Marla, go ahead.
By the way, during the committee meetings, they said that everything was going to be transparent. And what they did is they posted some information on a website, but nobody knew that the website was there. I think I posted it once on the Meadows, but there's no. After that, I saw it go out after one of the meetings. I saw it go out on a website, and then after that, that was the end of it. So it seemed like
even a press release, Charles, even a press release that went out in June, which they didn't even send to the media. They put it on the Hydro site. I didn't even know
that was the one. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. June, and it said nothing, by the way. It was a press release.
Mike.
Go ahead, Marla Pinsler. Marla, go ahead. Chaim, you'll be next, okay?
Okay.
Marla, go ahead.
Oh, Marla is frozen.
Marla's frozen in time.
And
okay. When she unfreezes, we'll give. Okay, Chaim Alan.
Sorry about that, Mike.
Oh,
sorry.
Oh, you okay, Marla?
Yeah, I was frozen. Sorry, my internet, that's a whole other discussion, has been a
Yeah,
disaster.
that's another
So-
discussion. Go ahead, Marlo.
That's a whole other discussion for another meeting. So, I had written in the chat that, well, I mean, I think we all appreciate all of your work and Charlie's work. The reality is we have a group of people here who don't want this to happen the way that it's been happening. Many of us who are just finding out exactly what you said, that these haven't been public consultations. This whole thing has happened behind closed doors. So the question is, the how do we get this out into the media? I think it's time for the action steps now, right? So we can talk and talk and talk, and this meeting can go on for 3 hours with everybody's opinions about what they do want, they don't want. The reality is our property values are going to go down. We don't want these massive towers. It's been hard enough of the ones we have. And so the next steps, like Melissa was saying, was to gather information, but how do we get the word out about what this is, how it affects us, and what the actual next steps are, Mike? Like I'm an action-oriented individual, and I think we all understand why we don't want this to happen this way. So what are the next steps?
Okay, well, first off, I think what we're doing tonight's a good start. They have been sending information out to residents in the last few months. These focus groups are the first.
Not everybody's been getting it, Mike. There's a lot of people who did not know that this was even happening since I only found out about it in December.
For whoever is in the focus groups, that's the first opportunity to everyone to express their concern. They were quite shocked in our call tonight where we were not busy, Mark and Dana, giving them all kinds of ideas about vegetation and bike paths. We were asking them questions, even though we knew they couldn't answer them. And they're taking.
I know. I understand that.
First thing
I understand
is
all
that Hydro needs to know. They already know about the Meadows. They've already had issues with us. The reality is this is going to impact Les Villas Merrimac. It's going to impact the people on Sabin, but they're going to be lucky because the substation is going to be put underground. It's going to impact people besides the Meadows, the Villa Merrimac, Bialik, and then it's going to go around and it could impact some of the high rises on Marc Chagall, possibly Equinox, in different ways. But we don't know yet. Across from the snow dump, we don't know yet how it's going to impact the people in the apartment building because they haven't been giving us answers to questions. So I think the first step is the focus groups, and when the focus groups are done, by the time they're done in March, we are going to demand, and you can demand, I mean, I'm hearing everyone tonight, so I'll report it, but I think others should express their concern to the mayor that we want this to go public in March, not in April, not in May. Hydro said tonight that they will go with a public consultation. And when it's a public consultation, that's when everyone can express their concern and education. Right now, we have in January, we have these focus groups. In February, we're supposed to have 2 more committee meetings. I'm going to express, if people agree with me, I'm going to express my concern that people around this table are not happy that we have to wait for this committee to meet. And they do have to meet because there's still a couple of things that have to be done. But I think that right now, starting now, everything should be public.
Well, that's what I was really kind of inferring, Mike, was what is the mayor going to do for us? You are an elected city official, and I appreciate everything you're saying and doing. What are the rest of your colleagues and our mayor going to do was really what I was trying to say. Like because they're the ones who are, and he is the one who has to push this forward, not just us.
Step one is, I'll let Charles comment in a second. I'm just going to quick answer. Step one will be by tomorrow night, I'm going to have a blog. I'm going to give my opinion. I'm going to say I've met with the constituents. I'm going to say people are concerned. I'm going to make sure that blog lands in the box of every councillor and the mayor, and it lands in the Hydro box. And I'll also be eager to hear. I think we can turn up the volume regarding the focus groups. Charles, go ahead. Your thoughts?
Hey, wait a second. I'm skipping me here all the time.
No, but Charles is my co-host. You know, he's my co-host. Yeah. So go ahead, Charles. And then Chaim, you can speak. Go ahead.
Yeah, just simple two things. One
is that we've had our hands up for some time.
Yeah, it might be good at some point to point out to David Burnham, Birnbaum, excuse me, that that people are concerned. The other thing is my wife had brought up a good question at one point as to how many people are concerned. We know that people in the Meadows are concerned because it's right in our backyard, and perhaps the people that are going along CP Rail, that they might be concerned, but most of Côte Saint-Luc will not be concerned. So if they, essentially we'll have to realize that we are kind of a minority fighting for our own little section of the corner of the woods here. So just my thought. Anyway, go ahead. Or my wife's thought, actually.
Yeah, no, that's very well put. Okay, some people put their hands up in the chat. I'm gonna Chaim Alon and then AL, and I'll get to the others soon. But to go ahead, start off, Lou, I see your hand up. Go ahead, Chaim, your question.
Okay, the question is, let's say, I spoke to this gentleman from, what is this? This is the agency that they hired to join the focus group.
Yeah.
And basically what they really want is the people who live along the lines. Okay, they don't want the people who live on Cavendish or anywhere else. They just they want to minimize the opposition, number one. That's what they want to let me
Exactly.
Okay. Yeah. Now, the other thing is that people ask, first of all, I don't think we can find anybody who's really for these ugly monstrous towers. Okay. So I think that at this point it would be a good idea to pass a petition. Okay. Sign a petition by citizens who live next to the wires or not, and present it to the mayor. I mean, this is, they can't just go and erect those towers, against our wishes. You know what I'm saying?
And the two committee chairs, councillors Erdely and Torchman.
Okay, so do you think it would be a good idea to go for a petition where everybody's going to sign?
It might be
not just the focus groups.
The question is how many people in Côte Saint-Luc will sign. If you have 30,000 people in Côte Saint-Luc and
34,000.
Yeah, and they're only going after a couple of.
You get a couple of hundred
here. They're going to say, look, it's 100 people, out of 30,000. What's the point?
Yeah, and it's important to note, Chaim, that this is going, as I said, from LaSalle all the way to Saint-Laurent, and you could be sure that nobody wants these towers. Hydro has to do them. And basically what they're trying to tell us is that they want to work with us in the process. So,
but where they put them is
that is what Charles. That is what the final two meetings in February are supposed to negotiate. Where put them?
Put them outside the residential area.
And certainly that is if we can. If they're listening, we can certainly try that. Okay, IL Gamliel, go ahead.
So quickly, while we were talking, I called up some contacts I have at the Bialik board. They're not aware about this project at all.
They are aware. IL, they are aware. They were invited even to be on some calls with me about it, and they are getting their own focus group, so they are aware of it. Maybe
is it possible that there's only maybe one member that's aware of it, and the rest of the board
Glenn Nashon, who was a former councillor and is a parent at Bialik on our committee, he's been reporting back to the board. But what's probably happened is Bialik has not told their community about it, and that's not on us. That's on them.
No, because I spoke to a board member. Are you sure about that?
Listen, I don't know if one hand talks to the other hand, but I know that I spoke to the principals of the two schools, Bialik and JPPS, 2 months ago. I gave them a big overview, and I arranged for them to have their own focus group. So they are aware of it. If they're not transmitting the message to their board, because the boards change over time, I don't know what to say, but that's, that.
So my second, I'll speak to them. My second part is in terms of the city's involvement. Is the city in charge of providing the permits for any of the work that Hydro has to do?
It basically, what happens here is it all depends if they build in their right of way, the land that they presently are responsible for. There's no permits. Obviously, there's a process in which places that their plan must be presented fully, and that will be done. We're talking about this project starting in. It's not that far off, sadly. It's only in 2 years. 2023 sounded a long way a year ago, but there will be a plan. But it all depends on the placement. The reason why we don't have our hydro project right now in the Meadows is because they wanted to switch around the servitudes, and we had the power to say, no, we're not going to let you, and they couldn't do it without an exchange of servitudes. But this is not the same thing. Trust me, this has been very well thought out. They've been planning this for years. And again, honestly, and I'm not sticking up for hydro, but this work has to be done. The power grid is not sufficient in Côte Saint-Luc, and also this will funnel and probably go to Blue Bonnets, which is going to have 5,000 new housing units. So it's, we've just got to get it done in the best way possible. AL, any other questions?
Yeah, one last question. In terms of the EMF results, what is the difference between the underground and the overground? Is there that much of a difference?
I don't have any data on that. Charles, do you have any response to that?
I don't remember that there was significant difference between the EMF above ground and below ground. The technologies are very different, and the one that goes underground has a what do they call? I'm sorry, it has essentially a shield around it, so that's one of the things that it mitigates EMF. But I'll look around. There was a PowerPoint that they flew around at one point that had the relative EMFs of the different solutions. But the EMF is a funny thing because it has to do with how much power they're running through it at a given moment, and there's kind of like a kind of a circular ball that goes around the wire in different patterns, and it's where that ball hits. It will have different levels of EMF up and down the ball. It's.
I mean, at the end, the idea is to maybe demonstrate the benefits of having it underground compared to overground. Because so far, everything that I'm reading, based on Hydro's position, is there are greater benefits it being overground. Because it could be further away from residents because it's high up in the air. But at the end of the day, if it's underground and it's shielded, it might have the same benefit. For us, in terms of cost, we don't have to care whether it costs them $400 or $500 million.
But keep in mind,
we have to live with that, right?
This is from LaSalle to Saint-Laurent, and I think everybody would like underground. Just for our project, it's about a $290 million difference. And I mean, we're pushing for it, trust me, but in the end, it's going to be their decision, Hydro's decision. And if we did have if this was the entire 34,000 residents of Côte Saint-Luc and we got them all up in arms, we might have some bargaining power, but we're not giving up. We're still doing it. Can I go to the next person, Al?
Sure. I just thought, are we starting some sort of social media campaign on this too?
Let's talk about that at the end, and we will certainly talk about that for sure. Lou Lewis, go ahead.
Robert was next.
No, Robert already spoke once, I believe, but he'll speak again. Lou Lewis is next. I'm the teacher in the class, so go ahead.
Yeah, thanks, Mike. I couldn't find the yellow hand, and really want to thank people who've been involved, like Mike and Charles at this point, anyone else. I have a lot of concerns. I guess maybe I'll summarize it at the end and just say this. We talk about these towers. I realize the pluses and minuses of it. I was asking myself, first of all, I see towers around near the tracks behind Mall 4, maybe it's elsewhere. Are they looking at making those towers twice as high? That was one of the questions. Are there others that are going to be put in here? But I think the big thing is whatever they're going to do between 2023, and according to the letter I had, it's 2027. By the way, to sign up for the focus groups, they say it had to be done by January 19th. But I'll get back to that in a second. I would like to know, whatever is going to take place, what is the health impact on the residents of the condominium? What's the visual impact going to be here in terms of potential purchasers looking at this property? What is the structural impact in terms of the foundation, in terms of what we have as a structure here, as well as, I guess, the impact on the beauty of the condominium? And I kind of support the idea of what Marla said. I also believe in very concerted action too. I think what would be best, you got some people that know what they're talking about. Mike Cohn, Charles Garant, there may be others that I'm not aware of, okay? I think the focus groups are not going to have a fantastic impact if we're all dispersed over all those focus groups. I would like to see maybe a Meadows expert committee, okay, put together all their thoughts. You all know what's going on in terms of substations, above ground, below ground, impact, cost, etc., and give us something, some direction to go. And a suggestion, I made this suggestion to Melissa, when you get all your thoughts together in terms of what we should ask for, what our approach should be politically, is maybe we should have it all sent out in very simplified language to all the 128 co-owners, okay? And we would understand it clearly, sign some type of petition to give this expert Meadows Condo Committee the ability to move something forward with the support of 128 co-owners, as opposed to having us dispersed over these focus groups. A lot of it, I don't understand all this stuff, to tell you the truth, with EMF substations and so on. I'm sure I'm not alone. Maybe some people understand it, but this is the way I would approach it. So keep in mind, health impact, structural impact, visual impact, those are really important, whatever is done. So that's what I would suggest as a very concerted move, to enter some type of action stage, whatever that is, with the municipal government, maybe at other levels, the city of Montreal, whatever it would take, because I'm not sure of all the political underlying dynamics there.
Lou, just to answer you, first of all, we will be, we will be hearing from Merrimac, a small complex at the end of Merrimac, but they are having a focus group, and I'm sure they're going to be opposed. We will hear to Bialik and JPPS will have to share this with their entire population. And the people of Marc Chagall are completely in the dark. I've given them as much information as I can. So together, we'll have larger numbers if all of us come out together. That would be the goal. In terms of the health impact, initial studies indicate that we really don't have much to worry about in terms of health. The visual impact, it will be ugly. The construction will be lengthy. Going maybe 3 years or more. It's going to be ugly and messy and noisy. And, we'll have to see what we can do to work with them on that once it's a fait accompli, if in fact the tower is, the new one is built right next to the old one. That hasn't finalized. So the structural impact, that's going to have to be some of the studies there. They obviously don't put up towers anywhere without doing their own structural impact, because they don't want to put up a tower that's going to come down. So those are the answers to your.
Okay, Mike, just as a follow-up, you mentioned the fact there'll be all kinds of activity around here. I think I don't understand concretely what would be the type of activity. Is it going to be that disruptive for 6 years, or sorry, for 3 or 4, maybe 4 years, if everything goes on time?
Well, they're not going to do it in the winter. They're not going to do it in the winter. And if you take a look at the tower now, could you imagine a tower twice the size? So they've got to build the new tower, then they've got to dismantle the old tower. Think of what they did for the Champlain Bridge. But we haven't got there yet, because they haven't given us all the information, and that might be in March when they give us a complete picture of what to expect. But again, we'll see what happens. Lou, I'm going to move on.
They give us a ton of engineering information with the schematic of it, where they want to place everything. Aerial views of the substation in 1950. I think at one point they gave us all kinds of stuff. But the thing is, it just comes down to it. There are priorities. I guess one of the priorities is ultimately don't put it through a residential area. If you want to do that, just move it out of the residential area. That would be priority number one, if you can. If you can't, priority number two is stick the thing underground, because anybody in Côte Saint-Luc will see a 200-foot towers on the horizon surrounding the town. That's the ugly issue number two. And then beyond that, you have to say, okay, if we're going to lose that, then maybe we need a negotiating position. I think my wife might speak to that.
Yeah, she's on my list. Regine Banon just wanted to know if we've spoken to Alan D'Souza. That's something that I don't believe a lot of the municipalities have already finished their consultations, like Montreal West, LaSalle, and they haven't said boo about it. They're just letting it go ahead. Okay, go through the list now. Davina Mill and then Brandy Adler. Go ahead.
Oh, I'm sorry. Brandy, you were before me. Go ahead if you like.
I can't tell who was first. Okay.
Go ahead.
You're okay?
Go
okay.
ahead.
All right. So I'm sort of taking a slightly different perspective. I haven't heard a strong legal argument yet what leverage we have. I don't hear a health argument either. I don't think we have leverage. We don't have enough numbers. There's way too much money involved. I bet the rest of the city of Côte Saint-Luc just can't wait to get better electricity connection. I mean, I don't know what the legal situation in the city, in Côte Saint-Luc has said about if we have a pot to piss in right now. I just don't hear it. And so I started to take a different tactic. And my first instinct was fight this, let's make noise. And then I said, we're going to make noise and people are going to say what they always say. We chose to move to a place where there's towers and now they want to put taller towers, but there's no health risk. So I started to think about it and I said, you know what? I just don't see where we're headed with this. And a part of me said, Meadows, we're being given some lemons here. Maybe we'll make lemonade. That's what I wrote on the post, because we need to think, I think about, they're going to do it. And I'm not even so sure putting it underground anymore is better because of the ground we have and our foundations. The way, Hydro comes marching in, they mess up things. So my feeling is, after thinking that I don't think we're going to win this, is to let's figure out, what do we want? For example, I mean, the first thought that came to my mind was they took down our trees and we don't have a sound barrier. Tell them we want a sound barrier back and make it pretty. Like we can start to ask for things. It's our land around there, what do you call it? They own that land, that segment.
Davina, just to let you know, we did bring that up in the first focus group. Now, of course, we don't know what power these people have, but you're completely correct. That's a very good tact. And I would recommend that anyone in the subsequent focus groups ask for the same thing.
There may be other things. I would love to know what the Meadows wants. I mean, it's in my backyard. I don't really want a bunch of kids smoking dope in my backyard. So I don't know if I want benches, but I do think I want us to discuss how to use that space to better the Meadows. I mean, we don't have a basketball court. And then I would say things like, what assurances are you going to give us that these things will be put into place in a timely fashion? We want assurances. We want something put down to tell us, yes, indeed. If we don't make a big fuss over this, what are you going to give us?
Just to repeat what I said earlier, I was very concerned tonight when I asked all these experts who've been working for 2 months, when would this enhancement of our area begin? And none of them could answer the question. I was flabbergasted by it.
They don't know.
They can't say, because they can't say when it's going to finish.
But the thing is that they don't know, because again, I'm sorry to repeat, they put the cart before the horse. They're asking us about what we want when the project's over to look like, but they're not, like the meeting we're having tonight, this should have been a meeting with all the hydro experts answering our questions. That's what it should have been. So Charles and I are substituting for it. I'm going to do the same thing with Marc Chagall constituents. Brandy, Davina, you have anything else to add? And they're very good points.
No, I from a construction standpoint, if they're going to make things bigger, then I'm assuming that they also have to make things wider, and they, just by structural standpoint, and then they also have to make things deeper. So number one, how wide is their servitude? Because they only have as much width as their servitude is. And as far as the depth, if they're going to be disrupting all of our foundations by going deep into an already problematic soil, isn't that a case for them to not be able to do that? So that's number one. Number two is, I'm wondering, the other municipalities that you're talking about that they're going to be doing the same thing, are they in residential areas like these are, or?
Yeah.
Saint-Laurent, LaSalle.
Montreal West just finished, and it's a residential area. LaSalle too. I don't have all the data on all the focus groups that have been done with different cities, but yes. And Charles, maybe you want to answer her first question.
I'm sorry, I missed your first question because I'm looking up trying to find documents.
Just in terms of the servitude and what type of space would Hydro have to put these larger towers and digging deep and so on and so forth.
Yeah, like they can only, they only have the right to go within their servitude.
From what I've seen of the tower shape and everything like that, they could probably do it within the current servitude without having to extend it. They're
depth?
kind of narrow in that the wires actually are a little closer on these towers than the old tower
Which
that they're
means they
replacing.
have to go deeper,
Yeah.
which makes me very concerned.
If they buried it though, the servitude would be considerably smaller because you basically
Right.
the wire is that big.
But never mind also, lowering our property values. I mean, already they're an eyesore. They're going to be bigger. They're going to be an even bigger eyesore. So, if they're going to be going deeper into the ground in order to gain the height that they need for these towers, then, digging up our ground to that extent in the back there, you might as well just take a wrecking ball and knock us all down, because they're going to cause major structural problems. We already have major structural problems because the ground is so unstable and because of the vibrations from the train. So that's one of my concerns. As far as what Davina talked about, as far as a sound barrier, is there any way that we can drag CP in on this, who already has a very outdated, unsafe, and probably not to today's code fence, and get these two conglomerates to put this project together with somehow with the wiring and the sound barrier being one project? I don't know if that's feasible. And I guess just to get public with the other municipalities that they're going to be doing this. I think this has just stayed quiet for too long, and I'm ready to get with Davina and make some noise.
Brandy, in terms of CP, they are having discussions with CP already because they do need to place towers. So I will mention that to the committee to bring that up. And as we said, I think we'll go from one extreme to the other in the next 2 months, and there's going to be an overflow of information from Hydro at that point. They're going to have to do it. But now that at least, remember, I've spoken to some people. Now, Ayel is here, Regine is here from Kildare, but I've spoken to a lot of people. Myra is here with Robbie. But for the most part, people that I've talked to about this issue, Doug Roseman's here, but for people I've spoken to about this issue who don't live in the vicinity of the towers, their position is, it's not in my backyard. So we don't even have, we might not even have 50% of the Meadows residents who are up in arms about this. We have to keep that in mind. Nonetheless, as I said,
but it affects all of our property values, not
Randy,
just mine or yours.
Are you on the focus group? Are you in one of them?
I signed up. I'm waiting for an email confirmation that I'm.
Okay, hopefully you're on one of them and you can make those points. So
are they recording these meetings? Is somebody actually recording them? No, not this meeting, the focus group.
Well,
I think
yes,
the meeting that Dana went to.
Yes, they did record it. They asked everyone
to record it,
and they did record the first meeting. I don't know if they're. I think it's for them. I don't think it's for us, but they did. Okay, I want to move along because we're
excuse me, can I offer something now?
Okay,
a way to get.
Robbie, you want to just let Regine speak and then you'll be next, please?
All right.
Go ahead, Regine.
So I wanted to say something, but what Davina said made me think of something else. I think that there's two views here, and Davina's view makes a lot of sense. Either we say, okay, they're gonna go ahead and let's start asking for what we want, or we fight it. We have to decide one or the other. It's like we got to pick a side and go with it. If we do decide to fight it, I would suggest we should bond with the people on Marc Chagall, the other townhouse on Rembrandt that you mentioned. Like we need to. It's not just the Meadows; it's us and all those other associations who should bond together as a front. And I mean, I will deny that I've ever said this, but if you want things to happen, besides a blog, Mike, we have to email the mayor. Everybody has to email the mayor. That's the way things are going to move. Your blogs are very nice.
And by the way,
but we-
I'm not being too political here. One of the co-chairs of the committee is running for mayor. He's already been very public on that. So write to the chairs of the committee and write to the mayor. Absolutely, Regine.
It's emails. That's the way that things get done. But I think it's important we have to all be on board with the same position, because I mean, I agree, like Davina has a point. So what is it gonna be? Where are we gonna stand? Are we gonna say, okay, go ahead, build these towers, but this is what we want? We can't do both. It has to be one or the other, I feel.
It could be, or the other way is to cause enough of a pain to them by, by pushing them hard enough that when they finally come back to negotiate, we say, okay, if you're going to do that, then you've got to do this. Pay every corner $100,000 to cover the damage to the value of your property. I mean, that's one way to look at it. The other way to look at it, that's the kind of greedy way to look at it. The other way to look at it is, hey, they're going to put these things up for 80 years. So your grandchildren's grandchildren's grandchildren are going to be looking at these things. So
Okay.
I don't know.
No.
I think Regine's right. I think Davina's right. And I think we'll have a lot more information in the month of February. Again, this committee hasn't met since October. There's lots of questions on the floor. And by February, we'll have kind of where we're at. And then their mandate is to go to the community at large. And that's when all of us will be able, but I think we got a head start right now based on the discussion.
To get more of the community involved, may I contribute?
Go ahead, Rob.
Talk about the routings. We have to pressure Hydro to consider other routings through the community. And when others feel that they might be impacted, that's when they'll be as well up in arms.
And that is, by the way, that is the discussion right now. That's what's on the table right now for February, is the trajectory of, that is what has to be finalized. It's not finalized. And yes, could we take the tower that we have now and move it behind the soccer field at Bialik? We would like that. It may not be possible, but we certainly could try.
Yeah, we have to find the routing that creates the least social impact. Even a visual blight is a social impact that creates stress. I would still oppose at this point. You could. I don't see why you can't do both. You can do both. But I think it's a time to still oppose. I would consider finding an EMF expert, maybe a parent of in Bialik.
We did, by the way, Robbie, we did find an EMF expert, David Son, and he did do studies for the city, and they did basically corroborate the information we need, like Charles said. It's really, it's not a from what we have right now, it's not a major health concern.
Yeah, I sent you in the chat a PowerPoint and another thing that was from the committee in regards to EMF, and it covers a couple other things. But basically, you'll see that cone I was talking about that's around the wires.
Where is it, Charles? How long ago did you say that?
3 minutes ago.
In the chat from the meeting today?
In the chat, you'll see a little Dropbox thing. It says PowerPoint from Hydro.
I didn't
know. So in fact, you can look at it this way.
You can look at that. I'm sorry. It went to EL. I'm sorry. Didn't go to everybody. I'm sorry. Hang on a second.
Because I'm going to cut and paste it and put it in my notes.
Yeah, there. I see it, Charles. It's at 8:50. You sent it.
Yeah, but just went to EL. I wonder why that is.
No, that was another one I think he sent.
I want to go to everybody. Okay, there we go. I think I can send it to everyone now.
There we go. Okay, I'm going to cut.
Okay, so anyway, have a look through that, and you'll see honestly, I can't see. I mean, Mark's engineer there, and what's the square law there? I forget there's a law of radiation distance, and everything. From the diagrams that they give us to
fourth power of range.
Yeah, that one. We're talking about micro Teslas, very, very tiny amount of
But you're talking
Does
one.
anyone realize what's
I
going to
think,
happen?
I think
to
they
our
came to
property
the conclusion we'll get about 1 microtesla. Right now, if you walk outside and you measure, you'll get, yeah, a couple of microteslas.
Oh, you can
Brandy,
get more of a
in terms-
variation in the
And-
Earth's magnetic field just by walking around than you will from the increase. But nevertheless, that's the jury really is out on what the effect is.
Okay, if the jury is out, then you can still advocate
That's
someone
the
who's an
thing.
expert. In the
Yeah,
jury.
that's what Quebec City did, and that's why they managed to get their stuff away from their houses. and underground.
That's all going to be handled. Brandy, in terms of the property value, like Davina said, and like a lot of people are saying, and I think people on our committee know, I'm just being very straightforward. Hydro is a PR machine. This committee they put together is not representative of the community, but they're going to say, we had a committee and we did this. We have made some progress, committee. I will say we have pushed them in certain directions. We have been able to we hope to get more in February. But the reality is, when all's said and done, it is very likely this project is going to go forward, and it's going forward from LaSalle to Saint-Laurent. In terms of our property values, well, yeah, it might short term, it will impact perhaps property values at a certain part.
Yeah, but you said it's like a 5-year project.
But it won't affect like the value of Isle Gamliel's house, who's more in Kildare, or Regine. It's gonna impact people who are close to that area. It probably won't impact.
Yeah, like me.
Yes, you're right. But that's the reality of people moving anywhere. Just like you move and you know there's trains behind you, you know there's a hydro thing. You know that there's always the chance there's going to be reparations made.
When you move here, they didn't tell me that they were going to put a 200-foot tower and cut down all the trees.
No, they didn't. But they don't. You know, in the long run, the long run, and like you just said, Charles just showed someone just said in Dollard, all the work that was done, and it still went. In the long run, hydro can do what it wants.
Mm-hmm.
Now we've been jostling with them, and now this because they were silly enough to start these focus groups. Like put part 2 before part 1.
Yeah,
we have a little bit of an opening to express our indignation, and that right now.
If I can say one thing, they violated the terms of the arbitration. They basically, but they were supposed to make any decision for explaining things to the committee was going to agree, so that we all got the information straight. Because anyway, they completely violated that by saying that they were going to go public without, telling any of us what they were going to do. So it looks more to us like a strategy now, rather than an attempt to give us information. It looks like, if you ask what my wife was pointing out, that focus groups are for marketing. It's to find out, how they can sell a product to us. And so they're going to try to figure
tokenism.
Yeah.
Look, they want to be able to.
They really screwed up there, because
tonight's
they
focus group
lost my commitment to them. That's for sure.
Tonight's focus group was. Who's on the next one? Anyone coming up in the next day or so on a focus group?
I thought that I was, and he didn't get back to me. So I'm going to call this guy back.
I'd appreciate personally hearing from people who are in subsequent focus groups, because
I'm going to be in February. They rescheduled me for February.
Okay, well, they didn't do themselves any favors. Anyhow, listen, Cheryl's on the 4th. It's 9:47. I'm going to close the meeting at this point. I think we've provided people. I'm going to write a blog where I'm going to kind of recap a lot of what we talked about, and we'll meet again. But at least I think people now have a little bit more information now than you had yesterday. Thank you, Charles, for being on board and providing the technical data. Thanks everyone for being on, and you all know where to reach.
Mike, I have one last question. Mike. I have one last question. I just want to know. Sorry?
No,
I just want to know.
Go ahead.
Go ahead. You had your hand up? Go.
No, go first. And then my question's back.
Go ahead, Brandy.
I wanted to know, as far as legally, you say Hydro is going to do what it wants. Isn't there a governing body, the government or whatever, that can tell them, yes, you have a servitude to service what is already there, but the servitude is not your land to do with whatever you want. There is, in essence, by putting up these new towers, there's a very good possibility that they're going to do irreparable damage to foundations of the homes along this grid.
Well, as I said, Brandy, they've done their homework. Hydro has been around for a very long time, and this project was very well thought out years ago. And they know that they can do this work, but they're trying to do window dressing with the community to say, well, we had a committee, we did this, and as I said, there's been some progress. We've had some flexibility. We've made some progress, but again, we'll be able to tell you more in the coming weeks on how things are going. Mark Sidloy, final word, and then we're adjourning.
My question was very simple. What recourse do we have to make sure they'll do whatever they agree to in the end? Like, let's say they want to make changes, plant trees, or I don't know what. What recourse do we have to make sure they do it?
You're talking about the meetings that we had tonight, the focus groups with all that stuff?
The focus group just shows that the people that spoke to us have no clue what's going on, nor any influence with what will happen afterwards. They just want to get a feel for what we have to say.
Well, listen, Mark, all we can do is, at least from the Meadows standpoint, we need to document. In fact, we would ask that the people from the focus group in writing at the end to send us a formal letter saying, based on the focus groups, this is what was recommended. Now, that's all we're doing is we're recommending. They don't have the power, then they're going to give it, but we will want some sort of commitment, and a lot of suggestions were made tonight. So can we hold to it? And again, this might not be done till 2026, 2027.
Oh, I'm well aware of that, but the experience we've had at Meadows so far has been the only times we've managed to get Hydro to do something that they promised to do is when they needed a favor from us afterwards. So we were able to hold their feet to the fire and say, we won't do what you want us to do
They told us
until you do what you promised to do years ago.
Mark, that's kind of the point Regine made. We need to pick a side, and I think we all need to think about it, because if we spend our time trying to get this thing kiboshed and we have no chance, and we can get our legal lawyers in on that. But if we spend our time trying to say, this is what we want, because we know you're doing it. But anyhow, I'm going to conclude the call now because I'm starting to run out of voice and running out of.
In the end, Quebecers will understand that we don't want our view of St. Joseph's Oratory obstructed.
That's exactly it, Robbie. You hit it right on the nose. Okay, everybody.
Yeah, right.
Thank you for joining us. We'll stay in touch, okay, and keep me posted.
Thank you, Mike.
Thank you, Mike.
Mike, you look great, Mike.
Good job.
Yeah,
Mike.
What stamina, Mike?
I feel like I'm going backwards from the because I'm very drained from tonight. I really didn't have the strength to go 3.5 hours.
You don't look a day over 49, Mike.
Oh, thank you so much. Okay, guys, take care.
Okay.
Bye.
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 Good night.
All right.